Welcome to Real Love Real Stories TV and podcast. This is Kanu and I'm the host. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the place to be to hear love stories. In the guest chair today, I have two very amazing people that, I've known for a while. I'm just going to let them introduce themselves. But before I do that, I wanted to read a paragraph from the book that was written by one of my guests. And it reads as follows. We all have mountains in front of us that prevent us from moving forward. But God chose this high energy Ohio boy with an extremely big mouth, a love for people, and a passion for life to help you go the distance. My journey to the face of death and back gave me the insight and wisdom to share with you, even if you don't experience it yourself. As we move forward, hang on, it's about to get real. Introducing my guest for this week. Welcome to Real Love Real Stories. I'm super excited you guys are here to share your love story. Let's start by having you guys introduce yourself to the audience.
Go ahead.
Well, my name is Chuck Keels. I'm originally from Ohio, moved to Phoenix about 25 years ago, raised two boys here in the Gilbert area, and have been through some challenges and things that I thought were overwhelming that ended up being a blessing, which we will get into a little bit more after Hannah introduces herself.
Sounds good.
I'm Hannah Keels, very newly Keels.
Hey!
Only 11 days is it now? I actually was born in Europe, in the Netherlands, and moved to the East Coast of the U.S. When I was around 6. So I lived on the East Coast till about 5 years ago when I moved to Phoenix, and also went through a lot of kind of big losses in about a span of 3.5 years that have really shaped me and changed me. And so it's pretty phenomenal to even be here to have this love story interview.
Oh, I love it. I love it. We go to the same church, and it was beautiful for me to see your videos on YouTube, your photos of your marriage, wedding recently. Let's take us back. Let's hear the backstory. How did this love story begin?
Well, I think I'm going to give that one to you, because to get both of our stories, it's really important to understand the back part of each of us, which we're separate. We didn't meet till sometime last year. So before that is what really shaped us to get where we're at.
Yeah. So the story behind the both of us, it was kind of interesting because when we met and started conversing about our lives, we were blown away at how similar our lives were, how parallel our lives were. And it was the craziest thing about, I think, the most magical part of this that, God had planned was my true life journey started about 4 years ago through a bout of cancer. And no one would ever think, like I said, when I first started talking, was that some of these challenges could end up being blessings.
Okay.
But it wasn't a normal bout with cancer either. It was an end of life bout with cancer. I was stage 4 and was told by a team of doctors I had 3 months to live.
Oh my goodness.
And so that story in itself is what, started shaping me. And, just to give a little clip of that, I actually suffered what they call a spinal collapse. So my back actually broke because of the cancer was softening the bone. I ended up in an emergency room at John C. Lincoln Hospital here in Phoenix. They ran some tests and wanted to do a couple surgeries. And after the surgeries, I actually was laying on my back on a hospital bed in a recovery room. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to the doctors and nurses. And I started to get a chill. And the only way I can describe it is I thought somebody opened a door at the end of the room and a breeze came through. And I did one of these numbers where you kind of scrunch up. Right. But as I looked back, I did a double take and Jesus was standing right behind me.
Oh, my God.
So at first, as a human, as a person, the way our brain works is he's here to take me with him. I'm checking out. And what happened was I started recovering so fast from stage 4 cancer that the doctors can't explain it.
Oh, wow.
And so there was this huge change in Chuck's life, all orchestrated by God. My ability, if God wants your attention, he's going to get it.
He's going to get it. Yeah, he's going to give it to you for sure.
And mine happened to be with an end of the life, stage 4 cancer. And then I started recovering, and I just would walk the dog in the morning, lay in the hospital bed, and I said, God, if you can do this, you've got my attention now. And as that happened, I allowed him to orchestrate my life. I surrendered completely to God and said, you know what? Now, I all these crazy plans I had throughout my life that I thought Chuck's plan was pretty good, all went in the garbage. I wanted to know God's plan, and that's what I was going to go by. And as that started happening, I found myself working with a lot of cancer people. I was a survivor. And in that realm was God's journey for me in this new life, not the old landscape designer, swimming pool designer, but now someone actually helping people on a daily basis. Right. And that touched me so much and so deeply. And I'll tell you, I heard Oprah say in one of her podcasts one time that she gets to start each day thinking about whose life am I going to touch today. Right. Well, I never touched anybody's life when I designed their backyard for them. They liked it, but it didn't just overwhelm them, touch their life, give them chills, see tears. But when I started telling people my story with cancer and what God's plan for me was, I seen the hair on their arms standing up. I seen the chills. I seen the tears in their eyes, and I knew this is where God wanted me to be. And so this started forming me as a different person, same personality, same love in life, love people, but it started me down a different path. And I'm going to step back now and let Hannah join in because this is pretty much how we met.
So can I ask a question before we transition? Were you a Christian before, and where are you in, from stage 4? What are the doctors saying now?
Well, the first part of the question, as far as my Christianity, yes. I grew up in Ohio at a Catholic school, Catholic church, mm-hmm. And it really gave me an unbelievable foundation as far as my belief in my spirituality. What's happened in the last 20 years of my life is didn't really like some of the things that I was seeing in the Catholic Church, or wasn't getting as much as I needed as a maturing, growing, mentally, physically, everything. I wasn't getting what I needed as far as substance, and so I had to look out different places and found a non-denominational church. Right. And the reason behind I say that is because I may decide on a Sunday morning to get up and go for a hike, and not be in a building, but I do know that God's going to put somebody in my path, and we're going to talk about him, the cancer story, and we will have church no matter where we're at.
Okay, I like it.
So on a spiritual basis, very, very strong, very, very strong in my beliefs and with my walk with God. And then the second part of the question was the stage 4 cancer.
Yeah, what are the doctors saying now?
So basically, my cancer doctors say they cannot stamp the label of remission or cancer-free on me ever. My cancer was so bad. When they first did the first scans, the cancer got into my bone marrow and traveled throughout my entire body. And the first scans came back and said I had cancer in 90% of the bones in my body.
Oh my God.
So with that being said, I mean, we can all agree I probably shouldn't even be here right now.
Right.
That's totally, knowing that God's in control. So I actually asked my cancer doctor last year after one of my checkups. I still go every 6 months for my checkups, and they want to see where I'm at because they want to stay on top of things. If they find something, then they can make a plan. My plan, and I follow God's plan, is to never have cancer again in my life. I'm back mountain biking and doing mud runs.
Amen.
Anything that Chuck wants to do, I do. And I like to do it just to prove him wrong, especially when I walk into my my doctor's office with all the pictures on my phone from me and my boys doing a mud run, and my doctor just shaking her head like, I don't want to see that. That is ridiculous, because if you had a spinal collapse, what my body went through. So they won't label me ever cancer-free, even though that me and God had a conversation one morning, and he told me that I wouldn't die of cancer. And I remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you know, but on a medical realm, they've got to go with what they know as far as case studies and what they go to school for and things like that. But you know, the case studies and the results that come back from all of that are average people, average things. And I would say that me and my walk with God, I'm definitely not an average guy.
Oh my God, this is so beautiful. And I'm like 5 minutes into this conversation, I'm already tearing up. The positivity and the belief in God and like what you're saying is touching me to the core. Oh man.
I love telling the story. If I'm invited to someone's small group, if I'm invited to stand on stage at a church where there's hundreds of people, I've getting invites to speak at businesses for an inspirational speaker. I get excited telling the story every single time like it's the first time, because I know, just like I said a little bit ago, I'm going to touch someone's life. It's going to touch someone's life and maybe change someone's life. And the whole story with me was, you know, surviving cancer, helping cancer people, all that was beautiful. But I had situations over the last 3 years where people told me they had some problems in life and they were thinking about going back to church. And now that they heard my story, they were definitely going back to church. And I walked away with chills and tears in my eyes going, God, you wanted me to bring people to you? I didn't see this coming, but that was God's plan.
And kudos to you for sharing your story so that the people can actually, you know, make that transition of going, not think about it, but actually do it. So
absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so the beauty of letting God orchestrate my life, I started seeing the blessings. And at first, I was blown away as a human, going, I can't believe who I met today, who I spoke with, who I told my story to, where I ended up at. All these things were so amazing, but they started accumulating and happening every day. Mm-hmm. And so when I say things blow my mind, now it's just an average day working with God, because there's nothing average about that. This is where my beautiful wife comes into the story.
Yeah, but I'm going to backtrack. So as he's learning that God's orchestrating his life, I grew up in church all of my life. And, you know, I found there's a few times in my life that have been really hard. I had meningitis about 11 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that shook me because I almost died from that. But then about 5 years ago when we moved here, a whole bunch of events happened very quickly that were huge losses, and eventually ended up me writing a book about them. So I'm trying to backtrack to like what I came down with, like the 5 major stressors in life are also considered the 5 major losses. And they're a major move, a major diagnosis of an illness, a death of a loved one, a career loss.
Health of your health.
And there's another one. I'll think of it. So
Moving?
Moving. Said
away
that
from
one.
Home? Oh.
So divorce. Oh,
divorce.
There we go. Okay. So 5 years ago, I moved. I moved like many, many, many miles away. So cross country. Huge transition. It took me like a good 6 months to even figure out where to food shop and all that. You know, I had 4 kids. 7 months after we moved, my husband dropped the bomb that he had been unfaithful after 22 years of marriage. And so it just took the rug under my feet. I had no idea what I was going to do in a new place. You know, didn't really have a friend set here. We'd gone to church, but I didn't really have a big circle around me yet. And so what it did was put me at God's feet. You know, I didn't know where else to go. And even though I had faith, it just really like tested where is it? Is it in people or is it in God? And so he really taught me in that moment to go to him. 3 months after our separation, I found a lump in my breast. 6 months after that, I ended up with a stage 3 diagnosis of breast cancer. 2 months later, my divorce went through. A month later, I had a double mastectomy. So, and then I had to go to work full time a month after that. So it was just like one thing after another of like major stresses for me. Then about a year later, I actually had progression to stage 4. So metastatic breast cancer, no cure technically. And that caused me to have to go on disability. So I lost my career as a nurse, which is another huge transition for me. And so it was just like really one thing after another for me of kind of what I've realized now. It's uprooting some of the things I'd put my faith in, you know, and what God says is, are you putting your faith in me or stuff of life, you know, whether it's people, your job, your financial security, all of those things, you know, your marriage. It's like those are things that I put my safety in. And it was very interesting because as I look back at it all, I started to see that like I was putting a lot of my trust in things and people instead of him. And as I realized, you know, he was uprooting my heart for him, it was phenomenal. It was like a really big wake-up call for me spiritually too. Like I just started realizing it started to transform me, where in the past I'd kind of just been coasting, you know. I mean, I would even say I had strong faith, but it totally transformed my faith. And the last big stressor for me was losing a loved one, and my best friend took her own life a year ago. And so that was hard for me because it was my best friend. And through that, it was interesting because God had used her in my life to put words to my faith. She would ask me all those hard questions that I didn't really ever have to answer out loud before. And I got to do it with her. And through that, probably about a year and a half ago, God really laid on my heart to write a book about all of this. And so she ended up having written the part of it for me, basically. So it was kind of interesting. You know, I'd saved some of our texts. And so I see like out of all this loss that God has just rebuilt my faith. And then, so last summer we ended up meeting.
How do we meet?
So this is the really cool part. I finished writing the big part of my book last July, and I come home and I'm talking to my friend at church, and I'm like, I got to figure out how to self-publish this book. She's like, oh, I never told you, I have a cousin. He just self-published a book and he survived stage 4 cancer. And I was like, oh, well, let me look him up. So she gave me his name, and I look on Facebook, and it's like stalking him a little, you know, and the friend, her friend is my cousin. Yeah. So it's
wow,
the coolest thing, right? So we ended up finally connecting on Facebook Messenger, and we started messaging and never stopped.
Oh, I love it.
Cool, because I still haven't published my book yet. I'm almost done. But you know, it was the way God got us connected. And then to see somebody else having learned the exact same lessons, maybe in a little different way, but had gotten to the same kind of real depth of faith and understanding that God's in control was so cool.
Very, very early in our conversations, we were blown away at how parallel our lives had been over the last 4 or 5 years, even though we didn't know each other. Mm-hmm. In the early conversations were our walk with God. And I mean, whose dream wouldn't it to be? I'm 54 now, single, raised 2 boys, for the last 19 years. I'm not going to settle. I'm going to meet somebody walking with Jesus. I'm going to meet somebody that's strong in their faith, because I knew in my past that was a huge game changer or a deal breaker. When I tried to venture into a relationship where that wasn't the base. So that was the first thing we established was just our spiritual walk. The next thing we talked about was cancer, and her book, and I wrote a book that came out last year about my journey. And so it was kind of we laugh about it now, but we're looking at each other and saying, you go through cancer. I lost 40 pounds, suffered a broken back. the physical, the mental, the emotional things that go on when you deal with that kind of a journey. Who would want to hang out with me? Who would want to spend time with me? And she's saying the same thing, and we're looking at each other like, she's beautiful. I mean, I want to hang out with you.
Right.
and so what we established, this is just last year, and a lot of people go, oh, take your time. We had a foundation that we were clear on, that we were perfectly clear on. There's a lot of other things and issues, and I mean, I'm in my 50s, she's in her 40s. You grow up and you're exposed to so many things in life, through bosses, through relationships, through, could be something spirituality, could be kids, whatever that is, and then you bring all that to the party. And so basically what happens is, those are issues that if you don't have a good conversation and good open, communication in your relationship, they can ruin the relationship. Right. So what we established right away was the foundation is solid and clear, and then we'll communicate and we'll have discussions about other things that come into our relationship, completely understanding that they came from maybe another part of our life. And when you give it all to God, it's a different walk. It's a different walk.
Absolutely.
We start our day pretty much every day praying and asking God, like, we invite him in, because he has to be our anchor or it's not going to work. Right. I mean, it's one thing when you're meeting at 20 something and getting married and you don't have that much baggage. Now all of a sudden you potentially could have a lot, and so it's cool because it's two image bearers of God, two redeemed people of God, we still have some baggage, but it's like, it's held by God. It's just really neat. It seems impossible in some ways, and then it's totally not, because he does it. He helps us through it.
Yeah. So, what a beautiful love story. So Chuck, I don't want to ignore this. What you said, is your book published?
Yeah, my book, I did a self-publishing on my book. It's called Hi, I'm Chuck. Imagine that.
Forget that one.
a friend of mine that's wrote some books over in Chandler about the financial world. I had coffee with him and we sat down, and he's walking with Christ also. And he said, when we sat down, we didn't even get our coffee poured yet. And he goes, the name of your book's going to be Hi, I'm Chuck. And I said, that is the silliest thing I've ever heard. I said,
get it, though.
I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about what God did with me.
Yeah.
And over the next 2 years of getting organized, the trials and error of writing a book, the challenges of writing a book about something so traumatic that I started writing some evenings about things that I didn't think about for the last 2 years, because I kind of hid them in a closet because they were harmful and damaging and hurt me. So it took me about a year to write the book, and then I was just throwing out all kinds of possibilities for titles, and even threw about 60 of them on Facebook and had everybody vote on them. And the title of the book came back, Hi, I'm Chuck.
I love it. I'll include that in the show notes so that if people want to just easily click on it. I mean, I'm sure it's available on Amazon, right?
Yeah, you can go on Amazon and just type in Hi, I'm Chuck. I also have some friends of mine over in Nashville that started a website. It's just my name. It's chuckkeels.com. And I give that to a lot of people, and because it became a tool. They can go on there and they can find the book on there also, but they can also see me standing on stage at churches speaking about my journey with cancer. And so in this new walk and this ability to help people, coach people, was any kind of tool that I thought would be valuable, and not really knowing when I started the website or the book, they would actually become very, very valuable, and people were passing them out all over the world. I get some feedback from people that have read the book and they're just blown away. Just like our conversations about the story, it's almost hard to comprehend that right. someone would go through that and be as healthy and as energetic and talkative as I am now, with the love for life. But that and in our walk now, when we've started this conversation, you said, you've seen the things about the wedding, things about the honeymoon. It was going to be a small wedding with just a few people.
Like 10 people, our kids, we have 6 boys between the 2 of us.
Okay.
Cousin Heather and her kids and husband and Frank, our pastor. And maybe 2 other people. And we ended up having like 60 people there that just showed up.
People that love us and wanted to be around us for this event. At Redemption of Arcadia Church. If you planned it for 2 years, you probably would not have had a more beautiful wedding than we planned in 4 weeks.
So before we get to that part, let's backtrack a little bit and talk about, so you met on Messenger and then you connected, and then, so when was the proposal and how was that?
Oh man, she's gonna kick my butt because she was in Europe when we first met. So for a couple of weeks, it was a lot of FaceTime, conversations.
Which is a really good way to meet. I highly recommend just talking,
spending a couple of weeks talking and
being in each other's space at first.
But she came into Phoenix and I picked her up at the airport, and that was the first place we met. She's telling people,
I love it.
He already proposed to me 4 times. And I was like, shh.
Well, now he's saying it. But, we just, got along so well. And he's like, wow, I'm not letting this girl go. And I really liked him. And I was like, I got to meet you in person. You got to know if the chemistry's there. In person. It definitely was online. But I'm sure there's a lot of people online dating these days. So it was kind of like that. Except we live close to each other. We just weren't near each other when we met. So, yeah, it was really neat. So he ended up picking me up at the airport with flowers.
Oh.
And, oh my goodness, he brought me fresh basil, some bracelet. I mean, this guy hit every major, love language gifting he could.
I love it.
I was just sharing things.
Didn't even know.
I was sharing things that I love though, because I garden and I have fresh basil and it smelled so good. So I brought some fresh basil, and we also wear, show me your bracelets. Yeah, we wear these bracelets.
We both wear them, so we're like, what?
And some of this stuff is lava rock, and lava rock is it's absorbent, and so if you put essential oils on it, you can smell them for days. So I brought her a couple little bracelets. And a
mug with a Bible verse, which I love. I'm like a coffee fanatic. Also, we drink our coffee the same. It's just funny how so many similarities. And I think he gave me a journal, which I love. I love to.
This is all on the first date.
Oh, the first night.
Oh my God.
2.5 hours in the car.
I told you it wasn't normal. I already knew. And then we had
breakfast the next morning. So I was like, okay, I guess that'll be an actual date. So then we had breakfast at LGO, and we couldn't stop talking, and I had to leave. I had an appointment. So it's just funny because
this is probably something that most people wouldn't bring out, but we have a lot of people following us, and a lot of people. We want people to follow us. We want them to see the love and to follow us and walk with God. So we're influencers when it comes to those type of things. And there's something I'll bring up that I didn't even plan on bringing up. That for the next few months of dating, we already made it clear we weren't going to jump in bed together. We weren't going to cross that line, because it may be a little old-fashioned, but if you truly are honoring God, and there was times that I slept at her house on the couch,
poor guy,
quite a few nights, but because we had plans the next day to do some things, and I didn't want to drive back to Gilbert. But it's the reason why I bring it up is because these days. It's just not that common for someone to actually make that conversation.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of honey on the honeymoon.
I love it.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I love it. And you do. Oh, wow.
She's like, I might have to edit this.
No. This is good. This is good. Yeah, this is perfect. I love it. It's, it's your love story. And I just love that even you waited till honeymoon, right? To celebrate your marriage in a romantic way like that. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the relationship grows every day.
Yeah.
Like Hannah said, we started our day out, reading some passages from the Bible. and then we'll start elbowing each other going, we were just talking about this. So God puts some of the amazing things in front of us just to keep our spirituality, our brains growing, and if that's happening, we know the relationship's going to continue to grow.
Right.
And if it's saying a prayer with a meal or before bed at night or whatever it may be, like you said, when you completely surrender and give it to God,
right.
and He's got control of this, the conversations are really neat because before, like I said, I grew up knowing God, but I would say 4 years ago when I went through the bout with cancer, I almost felt like I was born right then.
Yeah,
I started something new right then.
Mm-hmm.
I was never huge. I've read the Bible a lot throughout my life, and I can't quote things from the Bible. But Hannah's been blown away because as we're talking about something from the Bible, I'll know the story. I'll know. Yeah. I've heard it my whole life.
He quotes truths from the Bible all the time. So it's like it's funny. We're all different, and we all either we memorize and we've grown up memorizing things, or God just speaks truth into us as we're listening to sermons and music, right? So it's like that's all worship and it's all truth. So it's been really neat to see how God even informs us differently in some ways.
Yeah.
It's been neat. We're both learning a lot from each other.
Mm-hmm.
How God speaks to us and teaches us, and then we can do it together now. So it's really neat. That's been a really cool part of our relationship, I think, is learning that.
I have no doubt in my mind that God put us both through cancer for a specific reason. Mm-hmm. He had a bigger plan. We didn't know, of course, at the time, and everybody was freaking out. And just like when someone's diagnosed with cancer, it's, how long am I going to live? Am I going to live? I mean, these are things that we deal with every day because we deal with cancer people every day now. I know for a fact that God put us through cancer because when you're standing in a group of people and you mention cancer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in the group have been either diagnosed or a loved one have been diagnosed or they've lost someone to cancer. Mm-hmm. The conversation blows up so fast. And then I go, wow, now I know why God put us through cancer is because it's an attention getter. It's a deep, deep attention getter. Mm-hmm. And then when we start into that conversation, then we tell our stories. And when I say that Hannah still goes through treatment now, she's thriving through life with breast cancer, it blows people's minds. They can't even believe it. And
I mean, I go to the same church and I see Hannah for, since I've really started going to Redemption Acadia. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not saying that a person with cancer should walk around being sad, but I never knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that tells you two things too: that you never know what people are going through.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it, right?
Absolutely.
That's one thing. Like we often judge people by how they look or don't. So like most people are completely flabbergasted that I have it, but it's the other thing is true. It's like you can either become bitter, like Linda said, or better, right? My sister-in-law. So you have this choice to live. Like, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to surrender to God in it? And that's where you find your real joy and peace. Mm-hmm. And that's what was so cool when I met Chuck, because he was living in that joy and peace too, through his story. And I think that's such a big part of it. It's like you can come through tremendous loss and you can come out the other side just completely trusting in God. It doesn't mean your loss is it's not gone. I still have that loss, but God can restore a lot of that. And as I was looking back at those 5 major stressors or losses, it hit me the other day. God told me, he's like, I am restoring all of those losses. And the cool thing is he's using Chuck. Like now I have, this major move took me from a home. Now I have a home, have a new best friend that I lost. He's part of my healing story of cancer.
That's cool.
It's this redeeming of divorce is now this marriage that's founded in God. And it's just so amazing to me that, God is a God of restoration. And that's such a big part of what marriage is too. It is the gospel.
Yeah.
Living out the gospel, because it's like Christ and the church, right? So
Absolutely.
Jesus is the groom and the bride is the church. And so it's just such a beautiful way to live. And it is like our story, he was saying, people are watching it, but I don't want them to see Chuck and Hannah. I want them to see Jesus, you know,
Right.
and the gospel lived out. And it's just so cool to get to do that, you know, and try to keep ourselves not putting it on ourselves. It's really easy to do. You know, you could be an influencer for what, but we want to be influencers for God, you know, and that's really what we're all called to do, is to be his ambassadors. And he gave us this platform. It's not everybody's platform. I don't want anybody to have this platform, but you know, it is really cool that God can use something that's so broken in both of our lives and redeem it for him.
Well, I cannot wait to read your book. So hurry up and finish it so we can read it.
Well, it has the title.
You have the title?
It's called Faith Like Skin. And it's basically wearing your faith like it's your skin. So when people see you, they see Jesus.
Oh, I love it. Like,
so, it's almost done.
When do you think you're releasing it?
Hopefully, my goal is to be done with the final edit by the end of January and just,
self-publish like I did.
And hopefully get it going in February. I don't know, as soon as they can get it done.
Yeah. Well,
so, he already went through the hard knocks of it, so should be pretty easy. I'm going to learn from him.
I self-published a book so I can teach Hannah and help Hannah with hers. So
that's why we met.
And that's what got you guys together. I love that.
Yeah.
So I love anything with healing. You know, I went through a lot of loss myself just in the last year and a half. I lost 3 sisters, 2 uncles, and a best friend.
Wow.
Like it was crazy. Out of my poor mother, right? 3 daughters in 1 year. Like, how does that even, you know, and one of them was cancer, and, you know, so anything to do with healing and that sort of thing, you know, I am like, I'm a sponge. I'm reading and I'm helping my family through this difficult time as well. So definitely when it comes out in Chakios, I'm going to bookmark it and start reading. And if it's on Audible, even better, because I like to listen to books than reading books.
Okay. Not yet. I've heard that question many times, so I do want to get it on Audible. I know people are driving in their cars or you know, working in their yard or in their office, so that would be a nice tool to add to it also. But it's touching people's lives. A good friend of mine that when I started writing, he kind of said, hey, you know, I said, I'm not a writer. And he said, I know God told me to come and, you know, talk to you about, you know, helping you with your book. And I said, well, you're right. I need to get moving. It will help cancer people. And he goes, Chuck, no, it's not just for cancer people. This book is for anybody facing a challenge in their life, period. What you did through cancer and how God carried you through that, and what, you know, your responses and your responsibilities were, those need to be read by anybody facing a challenge. So I'm, you know, like I said, these are God's plans. You know, a lot of these things you can try your best to plan: a wedding, a honeymoon, writing a book, whatever it may be. But it's always, you know, trial and error. But when it's God's plan, it's just full steam ahead, which is really beautiful. Really beautiful.
Yeah. So let's transition and talk about, I want to hear from each of you, what one thing or 2 things do you like about each other? I know you're newlyweds, so this is...
Oh, yeah.
Can I go first?
Sure.
So when we spent time together, what I seen was this huge heart. I mean, if it was helping someone at church, if it was, you know, volunteering, if it was helping a neighbor, her kids, I seen this person with this huge heart. And so I told her a little bit, and this is kind of letting the cat out of the bag. When I seen that, I talked to Heather and I talked to Allison at church, and I talked to some people at church and said, I don't want us just to be standing there with our kids and just a few friends. I want people to be invited in. And so we actually started planning. I knew there was going to be a few more. I thought there would be like another 20 people there and end up 60 more people. But I didn't want to go through this beautiful experience in our life with this person that has this huge heart, that is constantly giving, and without people around her that love her and that want to be a part of this also. So I started, I knew there was going to be a few more people than what we originally planned, but it all came from watching her and going, she deserves, like a queen, like a princess, she deserves the world. And so I'm going to do what I can. If, God put me in her path, and I'm the guy, then I want to, take care of my responsibilities, make sure there's a smile on her face every day.
Oh my God.
Should we just get the tissues out now?
Oh God, I am already a mess. So
oh, I'm not crying, but we have it for you.
I'll use this right here. Oh my God. Okay, Hannah, what about you?
Well, it's funny that's the words you use, because the first thing that comes to my mind is this huge heart for God, and sharing through his story, he shares what God's done for him, and it always ends up with these big hugs for people that are crying when they hear it, and as we started dating, I'd watch him do it. And then I started becoming part of the story, when we're telling, and it becomes our story. So it's just really beautiful, because he not only has this huge heart for God and wants to share it with other people, now he's invited me into it, which is so beautiful to me. And that's to me, like, what it means to be a husband. It's such a beautiful thing. Like, he takes such good care of me, makes me breakfast. It's just these really cool ways that he just is constantly serving. And so he's got this big servant heart for God. It's just,
that's
really,
beautiful.
really amazing. And it's just been fun because we're doing it together, like the whole best friend thing. Like,
yeah,
he's my best friend first, which is beautiful,
So it sounds like gifts. I heard gifts being a love language. Is that for both of you?
We were trying to figure it out, and we're pretty much even across the board, all of them. But I think that's probably one for
I would
him.
say it is, and it may not be going out to a store and coming back with something in a bag or something wrapped up. Because to me, to come in the house and see all my clothes laundered and folded on my bed, I'm like, what is going on here?
Service.
You know what I mean?
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
so she's an amazing cook. She makes meals. They are off the hook. I'm not used to that. I'm used to cooking for me and my boys.
Right.
And so to come home to, just the house smells like something's being prepared, to see the laundry. The things that most people would say as a gift, bringing a bracelet or something in material thing. It's not the same form as those type of gifts, but for me, they're even more, they're more beautiful, because it's like, I didn't even expect this, And then on the same thing, she's seeing that too, if it's cleaning up the yard, if it's
we have
cleaning in the house.
He vacuums like, whoo, everything's done. It's great. I don't have to vacuum anymore.
and let's bring back into a little bit of thriving with cancer. I don't expect an average person to try to keep up with me, because I'm out there. My energy levels are just like, catch me if you can. So I don't think about that sometimes. And then she'll tell me, I need a rest today. Well, I've got to think about that, because, everybody can't keep up with Chuck. So the thing he'll go in and lay down. And so while she's laying down, I'll clean the kitchen, do the dishes, clean up the house, start dinner, whatever I can do to help her out while she's going through her resting time. And that is my gift to her as well. So.
Oh, I love that. By the way, I think I just heard another book title. Everybody Can't Keep Up with Chuck.
Feel my pain. I kept up with him the whole time we were gone.
She did. I
can't remember the last time I laid down. I think it was once in the whole time we've met. But
we went to California for part of the honeymoon, because we wanted to be on the beach. Uh-huh. We were bike riding. We were walking at the beach. We covered some serious ground, and I was like, I am so proud of you, because this is what I love. And to see her just loving it too and smiling. Mm-hmm. So we spent the first part of the honeymoon in the sun on the beach in California. And then we spent 2 days in Flagstaff at a cabin in the snow.
Oh, nice.
But it's been really neat to have, like I take medication every day just to keep my cancer stable. And like one of the big side effects is fatigue. And like I'll go for a walk or whatever, but I don't push myself like I should. And so it's been a really big gift to have him in my life, even to actually cook and do things. And so it's been really good physically for me too, just to have a reason to do things besides having a 17-year-old that does a lot of that himself. So, so yeah, we still have one boy living home. So yeah, that's been really special too. Just God knew that this would be another thing that would help me in my healing process, I think.
Yeah, it's funny.
Like having purpose.
When you believe in God, God can orchestrate a life that you don't see coming. And it's when everything just starts unfolding, it's so beautiful. You're like, looking back at where you were in your darkest times, you never even thought that possible. It's beautiful. So I want to ask, what advice would you give to people about finding love? Your love story is so beautiful. If somebody is in a position where they're giving up on love, what would you say to that person?
Well, I think we both got, not necessarily that we both gave up on love, but we did both have, at the same time, without knowing each other, we both came to God and was like, you know what, we surrender. You find, if you want anybody, you find this person for me, because I'm not finding him, and we both came to that time. It was almost the exact same month we figured out that we really surrendered it to God. Like, I'm not going to find the person for me, and I don't know if there is anybody for me. So that was how I was thinking at the time, and just letting God be my first love. So when I met Chuck, I was like, just so you know, get in line, because God's my first love. So if you can handle that, we can talk. So I think that's such a big part of it is, one, don't give up, but if God is somebody for you, just trust that, he's got the right person at the right time. And he loves to give good gifts to his kids. So
yeah.
That's the beautiful part.
I would say my advice is very similar. It's work on yourself first, because I know a lot of people that go through divorces and breakups, and the first thing they want to do because they're lonely is run out and meet somebody. Yeah. And that's the worst thing that can happen, because you've got a lot of things you got to clean up first, especially the emotions of dealing with a relationship go bad. And so at that time is when you step back. I tell people, I wouldn't even waste money on the dating sites. I've had people say I've been to psychics. I've done, on all these different dating sites, on all these ways, and they wasted so much time and they've wasted so much money that while they could have been working on themselves, volunteering at church, doing things, it's interesting, and we are perfect examples of this, is God's going to put somebody in your path when he knows you're ready. Right. And if you orchestrate that yourself and you bring somebody in your path when you're not ready, it ends up a train wreck. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it myself. I've seen a lot of my friends go through it. So when you start working on yourself and you get closer to God, really, really cool things start to happen. Yeah. And like I said, we both were in a situation where I said, you know what? I think my time would be more valuable just, helping people, helping cancer people, doing things like that. And so I'm done dating, and I definitely am not going to put somebody on my Facebook page that I'm dating, before I really know them. And it was amazing, because it was only a few months after I went through that big thing of, hey, just quit, wasting money, wasting time, that Hannah was put in my path. And I was blown away. Absolutely blown away.
And the really cool part of that is, like, in his singleness, he was like, okay, God, I'm just going to start helping people with cancer and all of that. And simultaneously, God was putting that on my heart, and now we get to do it together.
Yeah.
Tell her about what we're working on.
So over the last few years, like I said, after I seen that I was going to be healthy again, strong, even if the label of cancer is still on me, it didn't matter. I already had in my mind that I'm going to live a solid life. And not to get off the subject, but when people ask me about things like that, God told me on one of my walks one morning that nobody has a guarantee in this life.
Right.
And if you start a conversation with someone that's been diagnosed with cancer by a doctor that says you have 6 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it may be, if you start the conversation with, well, God told me that no one has a guarantee. You can be perfectly healthy and get into a car wreck or a plane go down or a boat sink or whatever God's plan is for it. I spent a lot of time working with a lot of organizations to help them because my heart was there. And I'm still doing it now with quite a few cancer organizations because that's where my heart is. I love telling my story and seeing the smiles on the people's faces and the tears and hugging them. And I love that. That's where God wants me to be. But I also know that when I'm on my ride home, I think, hey, you know what? You got some bills coming up. This isn't paying any of your bills. So in our conversations about what our plan was going to be for the next, for the rest of our life, part of that, a big chunk of that is bringing people to God through helping with cancer. And so we actually started working on building a nonprofit cancer foundation called Living Hope Cancer Foundation.
Okay.
And we're doing the paperwork and we're going through all the legal stuff and everything right now. And we hope to have that launched sometime this year. That way, not only can we just help an unbelievable platform of people. I mean, and I'm talking, we've got calls coming in from all over the world now.
Wow, that's awesome.
We want to be able to help them
do it full time,
and then it's going to allow us to do it full time also.
Yeah.
So.
What was the name again?
Living Hope Cancer Foundation.
Okay, and people can find you already. There's a website out there.
Not yet.
We're building all that right now.
Yeah, in the beginning stages.
Baby stages.
Okay.
Just like this relationship, baby stages, everything's it's all growing around us. We're watching it. It's like a garden,
Right.
We're watching the flowers and we're watching the vegetables and the fruits bloom around us. And it's,
spoken like a landscaper.
It might be a silly, vision as far as how I see life. And Hannah's an artist and she does some amazing things also. But with that creativity, you get a big picture as far as how that represents what we have here.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you say that, no one is guaranteed. One of my losses was my sister, healthy as can be. Yeah. Just one day had a brain aneurysm, was in a coma for a month.
Yep.
And then she's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a woman who, when you talk about a person who eats healthy, who exercises and does everything, was her. And then just like that, she's gone. So I can totally relate.
I just had a similar situation. A close friend of mine from college that I've known for years, and he's real close with my family. Lives in Columbus, Ohio. Amazing career with Nationwide Insurance. His wife, amazing career. 2 handsome boys, and went to bed one night and didn't wake up the next morning. And they think it was something to do with his blood pressure. But he was a gym guy, healthy dude. I mean, just. It's things like that, and we have to step back and think about it. Me and Hannah had a chance to have dinner with his wife when we were in Ohio a couple weeks ago, and what came out of that conversation was how many lives his passing, how many lives that touched, how many people's eyes did it open up and say, today is a day. That breath that you just took is a blessing from God.
Absolutely.
Live in the moment.
Yeah. Live each day for him, And so we do that. We try to really intentionally live every single day.
Yeah.
Almost like it's our last. Yeah. I mean, fully, and it's such a different way to live. It's huge. You can't live for when you're 65 and going to retire and go on a golf course. You don't know if you're going to live that long. And I definitely don't know if I'm going to live that long. I'd love to.
Do it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Do it now.
So that's where I really am very thankful for this kind of a diagnosis, because it's just brought my life to a screaming halt to today. What's today?
Yeah.
And how can I serve God today? What's his calling for me today?
Absolutely.
And now I get to do it with someone.
Yeah. So is there any question that you were hoping I would ask you that I didn't ask? Or that you want to tell the audience?
I already spilled the beans on a lot of things, so I think I think we covered a lot. You know, like I said, just want people to learn from us until, you know, I was taught something when I was in sales years ago, was to borrow someone's strength until you acquire your own. Mm-hmm. So what we're hoping is we can be leaders, and people can borrow our strength. They can watch our walk with God. They can watch our relationship and what love can cultivate. I'm hoping that, you know, this entire, you know, relationship that is completely orchestrated by God can be a learning tool for anybody watching us. And we've heard people already saying, you know what, marriage was not on my mind, but now we're watching you guys, and now I'm kind of thinking I wouldn't mind having something like that, you know. Yeah. So I think we're already influenced people. I think we're here for you.
She's pointing at herself.
We are here for you.
But it's true, like, just to inspire people, you know, that if you center it on the right one, on God, it's, you know, it's all possible. It's not going to all be super easy, but it's so good because he's part of it. He's the base, he's the ground, he's the framework, he's the anchor.
Yeah.
It's been really neat.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. What a beautiful story. I just absolutely loved hearing about it. I'm sure the audience is going to love hearing it too. So thank you so much for taking time to chat with me and sharing and inviting us into your love journey.
Well, thank you for inviting us and enjoying the story, and maybe we'll come back on in like 6 months to see how this baby story grew and what's going on with our lives, and it'll be exciting. I guarantee you that.
Yeah,
I love it, and I do live events, so you're welcome to come to a stage here in Phoenix and share your story with the local community as well. So
absolutely, we'll take you up on that.
Thank you so much for listening, and all the way to the end. I am genuinely so grateful. So now you can continue to show your support in a few different ways. The first one is, if you can think of someone who might benefit from this episode, please send it to them. And the second thing is, we all are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and the like. So please share this episode. And I love it when people tag me to their post. And 3, head over to iTunes. You can leave a review and you can rate this episode. All your feedback is very helpful, and it helps this podcast get visible so others can listen to all these great stories. Thank you so much. Till next time.